And it's just about 6 o'clock. We'll get going in a minute here. Sarah, good to go? All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. One of the more full houses I've seen recently. There is a budget meeting on Thursday as well. You're all invited to that. Those are very important as well. And we typically don't have as good of a turnout, so hope to see you all there. We'll call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional First People of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis.
Present.
Mr. Pike.
Here.
Ms. Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Yestad.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
Mr. Mosier.
Here.
And Mr. Celine is absent.
Thank you. Correspondence or agenda changes this evening?
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
I would like to pull from the consent agenda item B.
And we can do that when we get to consent agenda. Is the appropriate spot for that.
Okay.
I will make sure we pull an
okay.
item when we get to that point,
Thank
though.
you.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else there. Special reports. Tonight we have several scheduled special reports. We'll start with Sitka Tribe of Alaska and Council Chair Yeti Kuka.
Good evening. We have a few things just we wanted to let the Assembly know that we've had going on at the tribe lately. The first is that our Resource Protection Department was awarded a $200,000 tribal wildlife grant, and the Resource Protection Department has proposed partnering with the Wild Salmon Center and the U.S. Forest Service to install AI-enabled video shoots at Redoubt Lake to gather or to greatly reduce long-term in-season monitoring costs, and the data that's generated will allow Alaska Department of Fish and Game to continue to implement the award-winning Redoubt Lake's sockeye salmon management plan in order to maximize subsistence and commercial harvest opportunities. The tribe was also awarded a $1 million Indian Community Development Block Grant and is providing the funding to the Sitka Homeless Coalition to aid in construction of the Hitkisani Little Houses, and it's a permanent supportive housing community being developed in partnership with the Homeless Coalition. It will be comprised of 12 efficient single occupancy residential units, a caretaker unit, and also a service building. At our regular tribal council meeting, the actions that were taken were per usual enrollment resolutions, as well as appointing Lillian Feldpausch to a one-year term as the BHA Board of Commissioners Chair, and also approved our legislative priorities for 2025 and tabled consideration of amendments to the STA Constitution until we are able to have one more work session to see which ones were passed along to us from our governance committee. We also had a special meeting on January 30th concerning the numerous presidential executive orders that had taken place to that point, in which we identified that even though the news often makes the situation seem dire, that we have a strong team that is closely monitoring the situation and is poised to respond to anything that comes along, we hope. Our financial position in light of that is solid, and the true impacts that will be to the tribe aren't certain yet, and we're confident in our team. And so we will just continue to pay close attention to things as they come down the pike. The tribe will continue to work with our state and federal lawmakers in the best interest of tribal citizens, and we have meetings coming up with our congressional delegation as well. We also have recently urged the carrying of tribal IDs for our tribal citizens in an abundance of caution. And we have also responded regarding some concerns for the USDA LFPA Plus local food distribution that we had at STA. We were a recipient, actually we are a recipient of that, and we use non-competitive cooperative agreements to provide funding for state, tribal, and territorial governments to purchase foods produced within the state or within 400 miles of the delivery destination to support local, regional, and rurally disadvantaged food producers. And in addition to increasing local food consumption, the funds help build and expand economic opportunities for local and often economically disadvantaged rural producers. We are in full compliance with the terms and conditions of the grant, spending $256,000 on wild foods from local fishermen and processors and distributed directly to tribal citizens or used at STA community events, which are open to all of Sitka. The grant will administer $2.4 million over 3 years, and our local foods distribution program implements the portion of the tribe's strategic mission that regards community wellness, including being fed by local wild foods, as well as supporting a robust and sustainable economy and balance with the lands and waters that have fed our people since time immemorial. We're proud to join a cohort of LFPA federal grant recipients throughout all 50 states, the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and 84 other federally recognized tribal governments. And just as a heads up, on April 19th, we are having the 50th anniversary celebration for the Sitka Native Education Program. It will be April 19th, Saturday, here at Harrigan, and it will begin at noon. And we are hoping to begin on what we call bingo time rather than ku'ik time. We're hoping to actually start at noon without the usual 2-hour delay. And it will be, it will include portions of a traditional ku'ik so that people are able to become more comfortable in ceremony, although of course, because it's not a ku'ik for anyone specifically departed, there will be some elements that are missing, but we are hoping to explain all of those parts that are included as well as omitted. And we are wanting to include anyone who has supported SNEP over the years, and so this is open to the public. And so we're hoping to see some of you folks come. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit as far as just, you know, dipping your toe in and getting just a little bit familiar with Tlingit ceremony so that hopefully people can start to feel more and more comfortable in ceremony. So that's what I have for this evening. Ganesh Chish.
Great, thank you for the report, and we'll see you on time on the 19th. Our next scheduled report this evening, Sitka School Board, and the chair, Phil. Phil and guest. I'd say supporting cast, but I don't want to make Phil feel that bad,
well,
so.
I prefer support. Phil Burdick, Sitka School Board President, Dr. Jensen, Sitka School Board Superintendent. Mostly I wanted to give an update on where we are with our advocacy efforts. We went to Juneau, February 8th through the 12th, and the 11th and 12th, we met with legislators who were deemed fence riders. So it wasn't the smoothest couple of days talking with legislators. they're all hearing from their constituencies about the need for more funding. Every district needs more funding in the state. But it seemed to me that many of the fence riders were really just solid in how much and what they thought that they could support education with. It felt a little entrenched to me. Rebecca Himschutz's bill, House Bill 69, is now in the Rules Committee. It's being held there. It was fast-tracked through the Education Committee and the Finance Committee by the minority. And they're trying to get it on the floor as soon as possible because Representative Dybert is in the hospital, and they think that if they get it on the floor real quickly, there's a potential that it might fail. So there's some concern with that bill and some of the machinations that are going on there. I did bring, and I will, through the clerk, share this flyer about how we can advocate for education and some of these representatives who may need to hear from more than just educators, parents, students. Speaking of students, I want to give a shout out to the students who came with us. Gus Maxwell from Pacific High School, Olivia Scan, Reagan Wingard, Francis Myers, and Jasmine Wolf from Sitka High School. They all came in and did an amazing job testifying. They testified in front of the Education Committee as well as came to all of the legislator meetings with us. Did more than made a good showing. It made makes a lot of difference to hear how education is impacted from a student rather than a professional. And in our budget process, we met with the elementary staff today. We'll meet with the secondary staff next week. And again, district office is looking at every efficiency, but we're pretty much down to the bone. 85% of our budget is personnel, and that's basically the only place left to cut. And so when it's people, it hurts a lot more than paper. And we did hear from staff that they would rather have people than paper. So that's where we want to put our efforts. Next week, our board meeting will be at the Nakahiti Community House for our annual tribal consultation. We're working on strengthening that relationship, and we hope to take a joint Sitka School District, Sitka Tribe of Alaska group to work on that in conjunction with an AASB learning and work session, really. And that's all I have on mine. How'd I do?
He's got it covered.
I think I got it covered. I'll answer any questions, or I'll just wait for the resolution that's coming up later, so.
Yeah, appreciate your update. Appreciate the work on the resolution and everything going forward with school funding as well. That'll bring us to our Public Works Public Works report, a seaplane base update.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Bea. I'm the Airport Terminal Manager for the City and Borough of Sitka. Tonight I'd like to provide a brief update on the design and planning of the new seaplane base. Thank you. Updates include an enhanced FAA-supported base build, progress of the supplemental environmental assessment, project schedule, current and upcoming public comment periods, and a brief update on the Sitka Rocky Gutierrez Terminal Improvement Project. So built in the 1960s, Sitka's outgrown the existing seaplane base features, and the deficiencies listed here will be corrected by this project. Siting studies, shown in this kind of smaller picture, have been conducted in 2012 and 2016, with a reevaluation by a fresh team conducted in 2022, considering all 12 of these sites throughout Sitka to determine the most appropriate spot for a seaplane base. This is the previously supported FAA concept. Their original design here had 14 permanent slips, four transient slips, 15 vehicle parking spots, and a porta potty, with an additional expansion phase that would have expanded both the marine facilities and the uplands. However, the FAA would not commit construction funds in the near term for this expansion phase, so it was broken up into two separate phases, this phase initially, and then coming back to build up the uplands and then an additional float on the marine side. This is the updated build. So this is the updated build that the FAA now supports that brings the expanded uplands area into the base build with tie downs and a haul out. There is a future marine expansion phase that is not included in any near-term funding, similar to the previous funding schedules. This concept is anticipated to cost about $36 million, with CBS match at about $2.2 million. So digging into the planning side, after our previous findings of no significant impact was issued in 2021, our community raised additional concerns that led to a need for a supplemental environmental assessment. Once the SEA has been completed, the FAA will allow CBS to move from 65% design, which is what we're currently at, to 100% design, with both the design and planning expenses remaining eligible for grant funding. To ensure CBS has conducted the design of the seaplane base in compliance with Section 106, the National Historical Preservation Act, and in good faith with stakeholders, we have conducted a reevaluation of the siting studies from 2012 and 2016 and 2022, conducted an additional noise analysis of construction and the slight shift of the flight path north, as well as a field investigation conducted by an archaeologist and an anthropological biologist to study the impacts to subsistence and historical features. Once these findings are communicated to the appropriate stakeholders, these studies will be made available to the siting website. NEPA update, National Environmental Policy Act, a draft supplemental environmental assessment will be made available midsummer this year for public comment. Section 106 process was reinitiated at the end of last year with an update letter submitted to consulting parties on the 6th of this month. A public comment period is anticipated in the next few months, so keep an eye out for that. All siting studies, Section 4F, and noise analysis studies can be found on the city's website. And that's live here. Hope I don't, I wonder if I messed myself up. But this city website contains all of the recent studies as well as the previous work that we've done on this project for you to take a look at and go through. And this is where the additional studies going forward will be posted as well. All right, so talking schedule. We are scheduled to complete the planning phase of the seaplane base, so all the environmental, all the historical preservation will be completed in the spring of this year, with the design reaching 100% next year. Construction is scheduled for 2027 through 2028, with the seaplane base beginning operations in 2029. Multiple folks in town have probably received a packet through the mail from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We are currently in a public comment period for the Section 404 wetlands permit to build inside of Sitka Harbor, and that's going to last until March 12th next month. The Corps is soliciting comments from the public, federal, state, local agencies and officials, tribes, and other interested parties in order to consider and evaluate the impacts of this proposed activity. Any comments received will be considered by the Corps to determine whether to issue, modify, condition, or deny a permit for this proposal. Comments are used to assess impacts on endangered species, historical properties, water quality, and general environmental effects, and other public interest factors. Comments are used in the preparation of this environmental assessment pursuant to NEPA, and they're also used to determine a need for a public hearing and to determine the overall public interest of this project. An upcoming public comment period that you're going to see in the next couple months is going to be a memorandum of agreement between the CBS, the FAA, and the State Historical Preservation Office, and that'll be available to review this spring. The primary purpose of this agreement is to ensure that the FAA and CBS's implementation of the Section 106 through the duration of the ground disturbing and construction activities associated with the development of this project are being maintained. This agreement defines FAA's and CBS's avoidance and mitigation responsibilities for known historical properties that will be adversely affected and unknown adverse effects. It establishes protocols in advance of construction for the treatment of inadvertent discoveries that may occur during construction and to ensure clear procedures, roles, responsibilities, and authorities regarding these discoveries have been delineated. A draft MOA has been included as a part of our Section 4F and is available for review and is posted right now on the siting website. If you have concerns about the construction of the seaplane base and the measures being taken to address and preserve historical inadvertent discoveries, please read this MOA and bring your concerns to the public comment period that's going to be in the next few months. Lastly, switching gears a little bit, I'd like to let the community know that we're going to be reaching substantial completion of the terminal expansion project over at Sitka Rocky Gutierrez this summer, end of summer, and we are scheduled to begin operations early fall. And before we transition the terminal expansion over to a restricted area, we'd like to invite the community out to a reception to celebrate the opening of the addition and to commission the escalator. So keep an eye out late summer and hope to see you there.
Great, thank you for the update on the seaplane base. It seems like that one's been following me for quite some time, so glad to hear that it's still on track. I think it's a vastly needed community asset, so wish construction wasn't 27, 28, but you know, it's better than not, so.
Making sure that we're doing everything correctly, and the slowness of it is to make sure that it's done right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you. So when my daughter hears about this, the only thing she's going to hear is that the escalator is starting. So when are you, I mean, she has been talking about that. So when is this grand opening for the escalator going to be? Because I'll guarantee you she'll be there.
Well, the escalator is brought into Sitka. We pulled it out and it is installed in the addition currently. We've wrapped it up with plastic and foam, but until we get to July and we start commissioning the different building systems, it's going to stay wrapped up and protected. So keep an eye out at the end of summer. Melissa will communicate an invite and we'll bring everyone out and get everyone a good look inside the expansion before it becomes restricted.
The only time you get an escalator ride without $1,000 Alaska airline ticket, huh? What a bargain. Thank you, I appreciate your time this evening. Next this evening, we have department quarterly reports. We'll start with planning and community development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members. Amy Ainsley, Planning and Community Development Director. And so in my report tonight, I'd like to highlight a snapshot of what we do, what we're working on in our department, and the amazing people that make up the Planning and Community Development Department. So in our planning office, we have Kim Davis, who is doing an incredible job as our planning manager, and also working to onboard Ariadne Will, who started as our planner one about 2 months ago. They're very busy with lease requests, our kind of usual seasonal influx of permits. If you're thinking about doing things this summer, you should come talk to planning and start getting your permits. And we're also working on several subdivision actions as well that are coming up. So definitely hitting that spring stride of development and new business planning. In our sustainability wing, I think you guys have a good sense of familiarity with some of the work that Bree Gable is doing and the incredible job she's doing there. But the two kind of major projects that are on her plate right now, the Sitka Community Renewable Energy Strategy, as well as the Clean Energy to Communities projects, are both still in process. We're still working on them. We are facing some delays and some challenges with federal funding, and as well as with directives of the technical teams who are still providing support for these projects, but have some challenges in being able to carry out the scopes as currently envisioned. And so Bree's really having to step up and fill a lot of those gaps right now, and so is really working extra hard to keep those projects on track despite those challenges. In our Parks and Rec division, Kevin Knox is a phenomenal leader doing great work and leading a really excellent team as well. And just to, again, as you know, because these issues have been at the assembly table recently, there's just a lot of expansion, a lot of growth in this program, and it's really exciting to see how much the community has been engaging with them. On the programming for Parks and Recreation side, Kevin's supported by Ellie Campbell and Kira Dent, our AmeriCorps volunteer for this year. And they're really working on providing great things this winter like gymnastics, City League volleyball, community orchestra, after-school programming, and senior programming as well. And on the pool side, we have Rachel Fox, our aquatic supervisor, and was recently joined by Kelly McCarthy as our head lifeguard. And so we're very excited to see pool programming up and running, movie nights at the pool, open swim, swim lessons, lap swim, happening once again. I wanted to take a moment to shout out to our temp employees in Parks and Rec because they're not on the org chart, but these folks are absolutely critical in being able to deliver the level of service that the community wants to see from our Parks and Rec programming. We could not do it without them. So I just want to express my appreciation for Vance Bolovich, Cassie Brandhoover, Kira Carbajal, Corin Colliver, Carter Canaster, Taryn Fleming, Melissa Gibson, Zach Martins, Thomas McCarthy, Joe Marmolina, Julia Nabua, and James Nellis as well. So thank you to all of you for your hard work and for making the community's dreams come true to stay active and to stay connected. On tourism, we're working to find a tourism manager. For those who might be listening, if you want a very exciting job in what I think is a very cool department, please feel free to talk to me at any time. We're working on getting that position filled. But in the meantime, we are still working on the actions following the Tourism Task Force recommendations, getting the newly formed Tourism Commission really up and running. We had our first regular meeting last month, and also just working on preparing for the summer season. And so that highlights a lot of what we're going on. A couple of just other projects that wanted to quickly highlight as well is that we're also still working on our housing land study. So that is underway. We are under contract. We had an initial site visit from our geotechnical and civil engineers in December, just doing some preliminary site investigations, and we're going to get more into the more detailed site investigations and data gathering over the course of the spring. So very excited to be moving forward on that project, and also moving forward with the project that we brought to you in last fiscal year around centralized permitting and trying to streamline our processes and public access and transparency to our permitting and application processes to make both staff's lives easier as well as public accessibility easier as well. So while we are a very small department, we're a very busy one, and I'm extremely proud of the team that I have. I count myself lucky every day to have such an incredible team to be working with, and I'm very, very grateful for them. Open to any questions you might have. Otherwise, appreciate the opportunity to share and to give a spotlight to those folks working hard.
Just say thank you. I'm really excited about the land study. I've talked to you about that several times. I think that has a possibility of helping Sitka. I am very frustrated about the clean energy, the SCRES, and the issues with that, but I appreciate it and appreciate you guys doing everything you can. And thank you for everything else you did here.
Yeah, not busy at all, huh? And I know it sounds like a great department to work in, but next is assessing. Have you ever heard of assessing?
How can you compete with that?
Thanks for the update. And then the next quarterly report this evening, assessing. Also a wonderful place to work.
Good evening, Assembly, Mr. Mayor. As you said, I'm Larry Reeder. I'm the assessing director. We have a very small department, 3 people. Myself, Casey Kinslow, who's now an appraiser 2, state certified, and our new appraisal technician, Chloe Cagle. Currently, we are wrapping up our reappraisal of the residential properties for this year. This is our 4th year doing it, and we're going to have about the same amount of production as we had last year. We're not done yet. We still have a couple weeks, but it's looking like it's going to be about the same. We were hoping to finish, but that didn't happen. But next year we should finish all the residential and get them a lot closer to following the statute that we're required to. Along with reappraisal, Casey and I have been busy with new construction inspections and appraisals when needed. We will be mailing our value notices this year on March 17th So we have to like the 12th to get everything finalized and send off the file to the printers. After that, I get pretty busy doing reviews as people get their new values and want to know why and how and all that. It's happened every year. I'm sure it's going to happen this year. Going forward, I continue to work on our model for trending, and that's been the missing piece in all of this. That's what created values not being touched for several years, 8, 10, 12, some as far as 23 years. And then when we come around to reappraise, of course, people feel like, what? What happened here? Well, over those 8, 10, 12, 20 years, the market has grown. And the statute requires that we maintain that 100% of real market value. What caused that is no trending. There wasn't any trending done because you really don't have the data available to do it. But between Horan and myself, I think we've come up with a trending model that we're going to be able to apply starting next year. And that'll keep us from ever being in this situation again. It's a way to follow the market. It's not the way I followed it in Oregon, in my previous life, or maybe anywhere other than Alaska. But we're unique, and Horan came up with something, and I made some tweaks to it, and I think it's going to work. I got my baseline this year, and I'll do the same process next year and compare, and that should tell me what the market did for different types of properties. If we apply those trends every year, when we come around in 6, 8 years to reappraise again, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So hopefully we'll never be there again. I told you guys last time, I didn't tell you, I wrote it for you. We did a audit of the optional community purpose exemptions. Had everybody submit new paperwork. That's going to be part of our process. And then going forward, we're going to do that with a third each year. There's 30 some of them, so like 12 a year. Just have them submit new paperwork. If you want us to give it to you, that's fine. We'll have it for you to review if that's what you want to do. And also, pending legal review, probably going to bring a resolution to you asking you to opt in to the optional exemption program in the state. We look back to see if somebody new was to submit an application, how do we deal with that? What gives you the authority? It would be a resolution, right? Well, I thought, why not, instead of passing a resolution for every single one, just a blanket one that says CBS is going to participate in this program. And then we can go get right to the decision making of whether or not you're going to grant it or not. So that'll be coming forward shortly, after 30 days after the value notices go out. It'll be after that period of time. As a staff, in December, we had our 2-day winter conference via Zoom, presented by the Alaska Association of Assessing Officers. The conferences, as you guys know, allow for collaboration and knowledge sharing with other communities. I was recently elected to the AAAO Region 2 board member position. With our new state assessor in place, I can see positive developments for better collaboration between the jurisdictions. I hope to contribute and also develop processes that I can bring back to Sitka that would help us do our job better here. Casey continues to impress and improve in her role as an appraiser. Like I said, she reached level 2, which requires time, experience, and education. She's met those requirements. We've recently added Chloe Cagle to our team as our appraiser tech. Chloe is a college graduate with a degree in history. She also possesses certifications for project management, IT support, and American Sign Language, which might be helpful someday, because I don't know it. As an appraiser tech, she will be doing a multitude of tasks to assist myself and Casey, including filling business personal property forms, sending out sales letters, processing exemption forms, assisting the public, and much, much more. Chloe is motivated, compassionate, and enthusiastic about building a career at CBS. Casey and I, mostly Casey, has been training her for her new position, and she's doing very well. As far as the budget's concerned, we're over halfway through the year, and we've used 49% of our budget this year. Any questions?
Well, thank you much. Glad to hear that your department is now fully staffed, as assessing and reassessing is required by Alaska statute. Glad to hear that you're able to do your job and keep us in compliance. So,
Doing
thank
our
you.
best.
Under special reports this evening, did I miss anybody from municipal boards, commissions, committees? Seeing none, that'll bring us to the next agenda item tonight. This is persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. The button for the microphone's on the very bottom. There you go. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Assembly. My name is Ann Polnell. I'm a cultural resource specialist and a resident of Sitka for 25 years. I'm here to voice my concern for the destruction of at least 12 significant World War II cultural resources eligible for the National Register of Historic Places to make way for the Sitka Seaplane Base. I would like to be clear that I do not oppose development, the bettering of our community, and the opportunities development brings to our community. However, in this case, I oppose the location of this project and the destruction of the large World War II concrete outpost, the 20-foot rockery wall facing the channel entrance, the 2 World War II emplacement trenches, adjoining World War II features, and the potential pre-contact shell midden. I also find the mitigation developed during the Section 106 process inadequate. Why are these historic features, given state Heritage Resource Survey database numbers, important to preserve? These features provide tangible reference to the events of World War II and the historic significance of Sitka's role. The large concrete bunker is the only remaining accessible by land feature of its kind. The site as a whole lends to the essence of the importance of this fortification protecting the officers' quarters, which are located just feet away. Without these features, there is no comprehension to the threat of these officers as they slept. As you now can enter that large concrete structure, as was seen in the report by Mr. Joe in his the title page there, you can peer out the squared hole that World War II machine guns once rested. As you seek over the man-made rockery wall at the entrance of the channel and imagine looking for Japanese submarines attempting to infiltrate the Sitka Naval Operating Base in the U.S. Army Coastal Defenses, where officers and thousands of soldiers, perhaps some of them honored Tlingit code talkers, were stationed. These are not only features identified as significant to our shared history, but are a tangible memory of the next generation of Mount Edgecombe residents who once recreated and picnicked around these important relics. We have come some 82 years since these features were in use, and in the last 10 years, this history has been systematically destroyed. I suggest these significant cultural resources could give an economic opportunity as we continue to grow our culture and heritage tourism. I implore you to...
Thank you. In fairness to everybody, we'll have you stick to your 3 minutes. In fairness to everybody, we'll keep you at your 3 minutes, but I would encourage you to submit the written comments because I do want to hear the last paragraph. Thank you. Anyone else under persons to be heard, any item off of tonight's agenda?
Hi, Wendy Alderson. I just wanted to say, I wanted to reference the grant program that Yuta Kuka had brought up earlier. And we, as a local commercial fishing family for some 35 years, have been able to benefit from that. It's a great program, and it's really fun to be able to sell fish locally to people and make a little extra money doing it. And it's real straightforward. It feels really good. So just wanted to give a shout out to that program. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you'd indicated you might have a public comment? No. Okay, I was gonna say we can bring a mic to you if that's easier, if you'd like. No, that's all right. I'll see you in your office or the attorney's office. Sounds great, thank you. Anyone else under persons to be heard, any item not on tonight's agenda? That'll bring us to consent agenda. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull for quick talk, item B, supporting House Bill 69.
Okay. Motion for item A, please.
I move to approve the minutes of the February 4th, 11th, and 13th Assembly meetings.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve item A, the meeting minutes, Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
and Mr. Pike.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Item B, please.
I move to approve item B, supporting House Bill 69, an act related to education funding, first and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 25-06. Is there any public comment? Back to the Assembly. Kevin?
Yeah, this is just a quick thing. I would talk to Sarah about this before, but the meeting started. But line 40, there's a typo. It should say 69 instead of 60, but I don't think that's a substantial change, so that just needs to be fixed. And then I just wanted to say thank you to the school district for putting your resolution forth. And we basically copied theirs and made it pertinent to the language to the City Borough of Sitka. Thank you, Sarah, for helping with that too. And I just wanted to express my continued support and our continued support. I think the whole assembly is for education and more so just encourage people to reach out to their legislators. I know it can be frustrated even with Phil here, and he was saying there's a little entrenchment. That is very disheartening to hear, but I feel like, I was talking to a friend recently, I feel like communities are starting to make their voices heard louder, and I think it is good for the legislators to hear from more than just school districts, hearing from towns and resolutions like this and other people making their thoughts known, because in reality, the state has shifted most of the burden for raising our kids' education to the towns and cities, and we don't have. And everyone's trying the best, I think, or most places are trying their best, but we only have limited resources. We're funding everything we can here in Sitka, and it's still not enough. And I just basically just want to thank and encourage people to contact their Alaska legislators.
Anything further on the resolution? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve Resolution 2025-06 on first and final reading, Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
and Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 on item B.
Thank you. That'll bring us to board, commission, and committee appointments.
I move to reappoint Casey Campbell to a 2-year term on the Gary Paxton Industrial Park Board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reappoint Casey Campbell. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to reappoint Casey to the GPIP board, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 on item C.
Unfinished business, item D, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2025-04 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 electric fund repayment of USDA RUS loan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 25-04. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? I think a lot of the issues were hashed out on the last meeting, so I think the Assembly's well understanding of our position here. Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2025-04 on second and final reading, Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
and Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 on item D.
Thank you. Before we go on to new business this evening, we'll take a brief recess, as I think the next item is going to have quite a bit of speakers. So we'll make sure that we get a break before that. Thank you. All right, well, the assembly is seated. We'll go ahead and jump back into our agenda this evening. So our agenda, moving on to item E, which is new business. Tonight we're gathered to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City and Borough of Sitka and Friends of the Animal Shelter. If I could have a motion for item E, please.
I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City and Borough of Sitka and the Friends of the Sitka Animal Shelter.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this MOU. We have two introductions tonight. John and then Fosis will have an introduction to the process and moving this MOU forward.
Thanks, Mayor. As you remember from our October 8th meeting, when we last met about issues at the animal control facility and animal shelter, we received guidance from the Assembly to work on a new negotiated agreement to better outline responsibilities and to come up with an agreement that works for each's operational needs. There's been a lot of hard work, a lot of great work. We spent over 12 hours in a room together trying to get this figured out, and this is kind of an interim solution. As I understand, there's some Assembly members that are going to take on some potential changes to code for more of a longer-term solution. But as I said, we spent over 12 hours in a room together over multiple days since October of last year. Ideally, we would have loved to spend just one day hammering it all out, but you know, people have work schedules that tend to get in the way, and we did our best with getting those meetings in place. So what you see before you now is the product of that work, and in that MOU, compared to the previous versions, I'm just going to update or give you an update on some of the high points here. Is there's a more structured volunteer scheduling, background check, and training process to enhance operational efficiency and accountability. We have clearly defined building access schedules to regulate facility entry and usage. Clarification of intake procedures and responsibilities to prevent operational conflicts. We've included veterinary consultation as a consideration in determining the disposition of animals when feasible, and specification that CBS through the Sitka Police Department will make reasonable efforts to facilitate adoption for at least 3 months before making final disposition decisions. So in other words, clarifying what the code said as reasonable efforts, trying to put some timeline, some definition behind reasonable efforts. And then at that point, on this 3-month mark that's listed in the MOU, FOSIS will then be given first option to formally adopt any animals that have hit that mark while they're under the animal control function, and that'll be at their own expense before any euthanasia decisions are made. And I think that covers the high points, so I'll stop there so we can have the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Christina from FOSIS, I understand you have an introduction as well.
Hello, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Christina Tierman, and I serve as the board president with Friends of Sitka Animal Shelter.
And good evening. My name is Dusty Kidd. I'm the secretary of the board. And we want to talk first about where we are tonight, and then talk a little bit about where we hope to go. My job will be to talk about where we are tonight. And John has briefed you a bit on the negotiations which we had, but the most important thing for us tonight is to say that we support adoption of this MOU. It's a step forward in the right direction, and FOSIS is very supportive of that, but we have more work yet to do. Our thanks to Tor. Tor has been our liaison as we negotiated, and to Rachel for facilitating those negotiations. They put in a lot of hours, as has everybody else, so we very much appreciate that. Also, considerable thanks to the public for their involvement and engagement on this, obviously in public forums, but their support for our volunteer force to get back into the shelter is very important, and obviously for the welfare of the animals in the shelter. We had 2 remits from you back in the October meeting. The first was to get volunteers back into the shelter, and the second was to develop an interim MOU to make that possible. The longer-term issues were to get the public involved in reimagining what a shelter could be for Sitka, and with that, as part of that process, to look at and revise and update a very outdated Sitka code with respect to animal care. What we believe this current MOU will achieve, among many things that are most important to us, first, that any animal control function in Sitka will consult with veterinarians before any decision is made about euthanizing an animal, with the possible exceptions of those that have rabies or are a threat to the public. That's a big change. The second is that the MOU will require the city to provide basic medical care for animals when they are brought into the shelter, including a veterinary visit, intake exam, basic veterinary care, including parasite controls and rabies vaccinations and other vaccinations that are appropriate. And third, which John referred to, is a 3-month timeline for an animal to stay at the shelter before a decision is made about whether it would be euthanized or otherwise taken care of. And FOSIS is committing to adopt any animal that passes that 3-month timeline and take responsibility for its care while we seek a long-term home for the animal. Again, this MOU is a step toward what we hope is a longer-term, far more holistic approach to shelter management and animal care in Sitka, but we appreciate all the work that's been done to get us to this point.
And I'm going to just talk briefly about our recommendations kind of following this, what we hope to see. So as we look ahead, we want to ensure that what we are striving for and what the public is striving for is not unreasonable. And so over the past 6 months, we have conducted extensive research on what successful shelter programs look like across Alaska. So we've talked to shelters in Haines, Seward, Valdez, Homer, Kenai, Kodiak, Ketchikan, Juneau, Fairbanks, and Anchorage. I know I sent you all that spreadsheet. Hopefully some of you had a chance to look at it. And our findings show that compared to other programs, Sitka currently has the lowest operational budget and per capita spending, the only animal control operation that is staffed by just 1 person. It is the only shelter that does not require sterilization prior to adoption, and it is the only shelter with a maximum length of stay currently. And we understand that each community has different revenue streams and different priorities, but these findings do show that Sitka has fallen behind significantly in terms of state standards. And there is a quote by Maya Angelou that we feel puts it best. Do the best you can until you know better, then when you know better, do better. And we believe that Sitka can do better. And to align our animal care and control operations with state and national standards, as well as community expectations and values, we are proposing the following next steps, in addition to approving the MOU, which align with the recommendations that were put forth by the 7 local veterinarians. So the first, which is already in the works, is to host public meetings to get community input on the future of the shelter. Does the community want an animal control facility, a care shelter, or both? And we're working with TOR to set those dates for the meeting. Establishing clear policies and procedures for standards of care and euthanasia that are guided by industry best practices, and making these policies publicly available so that the community understands how decisions are being made. As Dusty mentioned, updating city code to reflect current national animal care and control standards. The animal control industry has evolved a lot over the last 30 to 50 years. However, the code has not changed with that. And so we would recommend working potentially with the Animal Hearing Board to accomplish this. And they're a group composed of many highly qualified individuals. Ensuring adequate funding and resources to operate a professional and sustainable animal care and control program. And then lastly, looking at transitioning shelter management to a nonprofit entity, such as our organization, allowing the police department to focus on public safety while creating a compassionately run shelter that our community can be proud of. We look forward to working with you all, with the community, and with local, state, and national experts to continue seeking solutions, Like Dusty said, we see this MOU as a bridge. We see it as a first step, but we are looking forward to working with you all to get to a place where long-term we feel like the community can be proud of. So we're happy to answer any questions about the proposed MOU or about any of the next steps that we have suggested. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure we'll have some questions after public comment and the assembly gets into their deliberation. But thank you for the overview of the process. And then Tor, I understand you have a few things about the process and how we got to come here.
Yeah, this was an evolving process. Let's just put it that way. That wasn't exactly what I expected going in. But first of all, I want to say a lot of nice things about everybody who was involved. Like we said, I think it was over 12 hours in meetings about this, hashing this out. There were ample opportunities for it to get heated, and it didn't. It was actually, everybody was respectful, and I think everybody was focused on the goals, not personalities and things. So it was good to see. Like everybody said, that this is a bridge, and I know my hope was that this would provide the basis for changing the code. I don't think that's what happened. It became obvious after about 6 hours in that wasn't going to work. But it did also, this also kind of shows where we do need to work. And so I am announcing that on March 10th, we will be having a town hall meeting to get try and develop get the temperature of the community for what we want to see in our animal code and in our shelter. I am envisioning this to work, hopefully something similar to when we developed the four-wheeler code. Not that it's the same as, but the idea of the process is to get input and write down, have a big sheet and saying, okay, answer a lot of the big questions that were brought up and that are like how long we keep it, who run, that kind of thing. Hopefully Rachel will be there. If not, and she will hopefully then help us turn it into a ordinance that will update our code. So I guess tonight, if you are really interested in changing what our code is, I guess it's pushing 50 years since we changed it, come to that meeting. That's where we're going to make we're going to be working on those changes. Right now, tonight, we just want to get, this bridge, get the MOU in place, and the kind of big picture, long-term stuff is going to get started, maybe not get done on the 10th. So, thank you.
Thank you all for your introductions. That'll bring us to public comment on approving the memorandum of understanding between the city and Borough of Sitka and Friends of the Animal Shelter. If anyone has any public comment on the MOU.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and the Assembly members. My name is Kate Johnson, and I'm speaking on behalf of the volunteers at the Sitka Animal Shelter. First of all, I know this has been a really long process, and it has involved many people, and I want to thank you all for your time and your hard work. I'm speaking tonight to encourage you to pass the MOU between the city and FOSIS. While we think there are improvements to be made in the long-term operations, this MOU will allow the hardworking volunteers to get back into the shelter to care for the animals. It's a viable short-term solution that's long overdue. I have two other quick points. First of all, I'd like to encourage a reopening of the investigation into the legality of the inhumane euthanasia of the animals at the shelter. And secondly, I want to speak to what we believe should be included in the long-term plan for the Sitka Animal Shelter. Just like Christina said, we think city code should be updated to reflect the will of the community using examples from other shelters in Alaska and the country. A humane animal shelter is an essential city service. This should be carried out by a task force made up of invested community members, the city, and with the expertise of local veterinarians. It should be contracted to be run by community members who care about animal welfare, such as FOSIS, who clearly has a proven track record when it comes to running the shelter. And also it should meet state or national standards for animal care, especially when it comes to euthanasia, humane care, sterilization, and medical care. And we also think it needs to be appropriately funded by the city. Thank you again for your time. We think it's obvious now that this is a very important matter to the community of Sitka.
Hi, I'm Amara Johnson, and I'm also a volunteer at the Sitka Animal Shelter. I and so many others have dedicated so much time, love, and devotion to countless animals, and, well, all of us want what's best for the animals, not what's best or most convenient for people who don't know them and how to take care of them. Animal shelters are a place where animals should feel safe. All of these hardworking volunteers here have dedicated so much time and energy into trying to keep so many animals safe and find them homes. Even now, when we're not allowed to volunteer, we're still fighting, putting in many of our hours to provide the best to be able to provide the best for these animals. We all cared about those cats and dogs that were killed. I took care and snuggled with almost every one of those cats, and we all know they had promising, loving homes and futures ahead of them, yet the cats and dogs were inhumanely killed with no repercussions. This should not be allowed. We want a place where all animals can stay without us or them having to fear being neglected or even killed. We want to be a staple in this community. By approving this MOU, it allows us basic care and safety for animals that should be allowed everywhere. This is not what any of us want long term, but right now and always our best interests are the animals and keeping them safe.
On the very bottom, there's a button. It'll turn red.
I'm good now. Thank you.
You're good.
Galen Payne, and I've obviously been involved in this whole process, kind of not part of the FOSA group. But first of all, I am amazed at the quality of work that FOSA has done. They have volunteered incredible time, energy, and caring. No other word for it. And I just want to thank them publicly. Second, I obviously support the MOU. It's a long time coming. There's a greater issue here too, though. The issue is this issue has divided the community, and it's caused mistrust of the city government. And that includes the assembly, unfortunately, and it includes the rest of the administration. I have written an email to all of you, and I think that I'm not going to talk about it here because I think it's divisive. But there has to be something, I think, to bring this community back. And I think one of the things would be an acknowledgement that there were some serious missteps in the handling of the shelter from, for the last 7 months. And because I hate to see the community further divided and blame just spread around where it doesn't belong. So that's my plea to you, is to look at something to heal the community as well. The MOU is a start, but it ain't the finish. Thank you.
Good evening, Austin Cranford. I would like to start off that I obviously support the MOU. I was going to mention that in the MOU it said that it did not make recommendations to change the code. I do disagree with that. However, the Assembly has said that there will be a town hall in March, so I'll refrain from mentioning my comments regarding how the code could already be changed and be in compliance with state law. I do wish to see the report that the administrator did do. I have a records request in for that information that was not given to me prior to this meeting, but I'd like to see how we came to the conclusion that there is no fault. I'd like to remind the public that the Division of Professional Licensing through the Department of Commerce is still actively investigating the city. In fact, I found out yesterday that the case number is 2025-000-143, and Jenny Summers, a senior investigator for the Division of Professional Licensing, will be heading that investigation. With that being said, if anybody has any information, they're free to send it to her, send it to me, and I can forward it on. The reason I'm up here is, as mentioned by other members of the community, I would like to see this reinvestigated. It clearly...
And sir, while I appreciate your comments, this is about the MOU. There is an opportunity this evening for items on or off the agenda where I would appreciate your comments at that point.
Yes, this is about the MOU, Mayor. The MOU and the investigation are correct, but I can continue at persons to be heard if you would like.
I just would like to redirect the comments, so if you have further about the MOU, would love to hear it.
No, I support the MOU, and I will be back for persons to be heard. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Further comments for persons to be heard? Approving a memorandum of understanding between the city and Friends of the Animal Shelter? Sarah, do we have a copy of the MOU on the back table? I think Christina's right behind you and would be able to help with that.
If you go to cityofsitka.org, you can go to the assembly meetings and click on tonight's meeting date, and then you'll see the agenda item there, and you can click on that.
My apologies, Christina, to put you on the spot. I think you understand the constraints of our back and forth at this point, so I was thinking that was an easier way to get some help that was needed. We'll bring it back to the assembly for discussion. Kevin?
Mr. Mayor, that we didn't have more public comment. I'm assuming that's because folks are all kind of on the same page, and we've also gotten emails, many emails regarding this, so we kind of clearly know how the community feels. I do have to be careful with how I say this comment, but I'll just say, I'm glad to acknowledge the mismanagement and any unfortunate circumstance that happened over the past 7 months. That is not something I'm pleased with or happy with. I would imagine each assembly member feels the same way. So having said that, I am really excited about the MOU. I wanted to give thanks to FOSUS and John and Rachel and Tor. Thank you for helping that. I think it was a long time, and I think people, both sides, had to compromise, and I think they come up with a good product that, as many have said, is a temporary thing. Biggest thing is it gets people back in. I think this is a really good thing. We haven't had a good MOU like this in a long time on this specific thing. A couple things I'll point out that I like about it. It defines clear guidelines for everyone's roles. I think that was a big problem before. There was no clarity. People didn't know what they were supposed to do or what have you, and that's cleared up quite a bit. It also clears up the roles between the ACO and FOSUS volunteers, and also helps create a more collaborative relationship, which I really like. Also, the training, I'm really excited about that. I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't even know if we had training before at all, but that's really good. I think that's because the training is important because people need to take care of the animals compassionately and also safely. Some animals might be jittery or things like that. The softwares for scheduling shifts, I think that's a great thing. Gives people more control once they've been vetted to, come up with schedules that haven't been taken. So that's all kind of, online. I like that. I really like that it helps build a team atmosphere. I think people are going to really like working together. And then the key card or the programmable key system, I really like that. It addresses a lot of the security concerns so that volunteers are going into rooms that are safe and don't have access to rooms that maybe could be housing an animal that's in quarantine or something, or that could be dangerous. So it really brings a lot. I like that I think it is a very safe thing. also helps us to make sure the right people are getting into the building. We don't want any unvetted volunteers in. The application process for the volunteers, I think that's really good. Biggest thing is that this gets community members who love and care for animals and contribute their time and affection to animals that need it. Really gives an animal a better chance of moving into a caring home where they will that will love it. And I just really appreciate all this. I'm excited. And I know, it was a lot of hard work. I wasn't in the meetings, but I know it's been very hard. And we appreciate deeply everyone's compassion and patience with us during this process. It's been a little longer than a lot longer than we all thought. But I've gotten to know a few of you, and I could still really see the love and compassion for animals coming out. So this will give the community who's interested the opportunity to really invest and help. So thank you.
Yeah, just real quickly, this, again, there's a lot of work went into this. It is a compromise document. But like I said, it really does start to lay the groundwork for an ordinance. A lot of what's gonna be in the ordinance is gonna grow out of this, I think. And the hope was to get this done and then start working on the ordinance. Well, now this is done, and in just a couple of weeks, we'll start working on the ordinance. We've been kind of chomping at the bit to get going on some of this stuff, and now we can and will. And hopefully, this document is the beginning of a more collaborative and cooperative and healthy facility and healthy, and we can ultimately take care of our animals in our own way in Sitka. So I think you guys have said most of what needs to be said about it, but I'm happy to finally have something up here and that we can move forward.
Tim?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm obviously in support of this MOU, and it's sometimes things happen, and sometimes the assembly members see a piece of code that needs to be fixed, and sometimes we all discover it as a group. And I think our code reflected what people thought quite a while ago, and there were obviously people that cared about animals and were taking care of things absent code language for that. And I think codifying it as we're doing now is the best first step for this, but I'm one of the supporters for the town hall. I'll be there on March 10th, so look forward to changing the code at that time.
Chris?
Yeah, I think in large part, I definitely, support this MOU. I liked a lot of what was in here. I think it conveys a lot of what the public has been asking for, and definitely happy to pass it on. While going through it, I think I definitely saw some of the sticking points for both sides, and I'd like to thank, staff time. So yeah, this is definitely something that I support.
JJ?
I was reviewing my notes from the October meeting, and there was a page and a half just on this topic. And that means there was a lot said that I wanted to hear and I wanted to remember. And in that review, this document does cover much of what was discussed then, but there's still more work to be done. And seeing what fits, with the volunteers and what fits with the city and what can be done with the funding, it's a pretty complex deal. And I'm so grateful for everyone who has given so much time to this point. And this is the beginning. So if we keep at it and keep dedicated, we can really do a lot together, and that gives me energy to see this group working well with us through our untimely process. But thank you for all of that, because it matters. And these are animals that can't necessarily speak for themselves, and so we need to come together to do what's right for them. Thank you.
So I want to start my comments by saying I apologize. I apologize that this was the catalyst that brought all you forward today. I wish this could have been seen in code some time ago so that we wouldn't have had to rise to this level. While I love to see the smiling faces in this room, I love to see the energy going forward, we shouldn't have had to meet on these terms initially. This should have been something that was identified previously and moved forward at that point. The simple fact that volunteers were removed from a shelter after successfully running it as the primary should have been an indication. The simple fact that we did not take actions that were in consideration of the community's will should have been an indication. So I'm sorry for that. But again, I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that we're moving forward, and I'm glad that this MOU is being signed so that we can take positive steps in the right direction, that we can change animal control to an animal shelter, so that we can get to the point where we transfer the operations of an animal shelter to a nonprofit organization. That would be my ultimate goal. When I first heard of these issues, that was my instant solution. Well, let's let someone run it. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but I'm looking forward to the days where this is but a distant memory and we have a fully functioning animal shelter, not simply animal control within our municipality. Not only is that what we need to do, but it's very apparent that that's what the community desires within our town. I know that there's a sticking point on the 3 to 5 day holding period within our current animal control system. I'd like to state that it has always been the discretion of the animal control officer to hold animals longer than that. Very rarely has an animal not been in the shelter over that 3 to 5 day period. And so we have the discretion in order to hold those animals longer. We can, and it has been done in the past, and we will continue to do so at this point. I want to say now that this MOU is going to be signed, it appears. It sounds as if the Assembly is in full support, that FOSIS is in full support at this point, that this is the guiding document. To me, this is as good as the letter of the law until we change code. So this is the standards that I'm going to hold ourselves to, and this is the standards that FOSIS is going to be held to. Everybody knows where we're at this point. Everybody knows how we're moving forward. I think this is an outstanding first step to get us there. And I agree with all the future goals that were stated earlier by FOSIS. It seems as if it's the natural progression. It seems as if it's the steps that we need to do to go forward to get this to a place where the community is desirous of. Changing code is no doubt going to be a longer process. Glad Tor's doing that one, not me. He seems to have a little more time on his hands right now, but thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who's going to come out to our town hall. Tor, you said March 10th? Yep. March 10th. Come out to the town hall. Is that 6 p.m. here, I'm assuming? Yep. Or around there. 6 p.m. here. Give some ideas on code. If you've researched other municipalities within the state of Alaska that have code that you'd like to see as opposed to what we have now, please bring those ideas out. Let us know how you want to shape this code, because this process originated with you and was shaped by you for you. We want to hear it so that we don't have to go backwards. That's my ultimate goal with this, is I don't want to go to where we've been. The standards of 10 years ago, as recently as 10 years ago, they don't coincide with the society and the town that we want. So I'm happy to be moving forward. I'm excited that we're getting somewhere, but again, I apologize for the catalysts that got us to this situation now, and hope that we'll continue to work forward in solutions as we go. Anything else from the Assembly on this one? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City and Borough of Sitka and Friends of Sitka Animal Shelter. Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
And Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That'll bring us to item F, please.
I move to approve a letter of agreement between the City and Borough of Sitka and the Public Safety Employees Association regarding the 2022 to 2025 PSEA agreement extension through June 30th, 2026 with the hourly rate modifications for Sitka Police Department staff.
Second.
John, I understand you have an introduction for this one?
I do. I'm somewhere between the really quick and easy introduction and the complicated one, and I'll try to find the.
That's
the
not
middle
too
ground
complicated.
here, but, so we've had a lot going on over the past year, just in terms of reorganization, restructuring, and compensation studies. And you've seen in certain areas we've had difficulty hiring, difficulty retaining. You know, we've made some big changes in the electric department over the years to address that, and the police department, similar things. You know, recruiting and retention is a challenge everywhere in law enforcement, and we've tried sign-on bonuses. We've tried premium pays for short staffing. You know, lots of other solutions that other communities have tried too, and they're seeing similar results as well. So we took a big step and said, you know, what is out there in the rest of Alaska, and how can we do better, and how can we be leading the charge in that world? So normally a letter of agreement is meant to kind of tweak and fix little inconsistencies in a long-term contract. But in this case, going after wages and making some improvements there, that is a mandatory subject of bargaining. So in this case, with some...
Fortunately, just a mop bucket.
You will see through the LOA that we've, as part of that restructuring, we've got new job descriptions over there. Some of the new titles, we needed to get the bargaining unit to concur with that. And with that, there are some new rates that were studied by our compensation team, even though that study is not completely done at all. You know, we felt like we needed to move on this one. But in discussing with the bargaining unit, making this offer, we asked that since it is such a big move, if we could extend the contract as it exists now with these changes for a full another year. Normally in LOA, I would just take care of within our budget boundaries and within city administration. But since this is an extension to the contract, just as if we were signing a new contract, it would come forward to the Assembly for ratification. So PSEA has approved this, and we're holding off on signing until the Assembly gets to review the changes and agree to an extension of 1 year on the contract under these new terms. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate that. Is there any public comment on approving the letter of agreement between City and Borough of Sitka and PSEA?
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. My name's Lance Yours. I'm one of your police officers in our beautiful town. And I just want to, before everybody votes, to just say thank you, and to all the hard work that HR and John Leach put into this. I know they put a lot of work into it, and I'm the PSEA president, and we support this. And thank you for all your hard work.
Anyone else on the agreement? Back to the Assembly for deliberation.
Just support it.
Kevin?
Yeah, I just support it. I think it's great. I'm seeing some wages that are a lot better than they used to be. I'm sure it's still an ongoing thing that needs to be looked at, but I'm fully in support of this.
John, thank you for continuing to look into this. I know this idea was floated some time ago. We weren't sure if we could quite make it work, but thank you for looking into it. Obviously, the lack of regular officers that we have at the police department is a cause for concern. I think this will go a long way in recruiting and retaining, hopefully retaining the ones we have and getting a few more on board. So I'm excited to see that. I know a large increase like this worked out well at our electric department with linemen, and I believe that this puts us in a very competitive place amongst Alaska. So we'll see what this can do. If anyone out there knows of anyone who's interested in becoming a police officer, we have a couple open spots. So anyone else on the letter of agreement? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the letter of agreement between the city and PSCA, Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yep.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
And Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 on item F.
Thank you. That'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Austin Cranford again. Just to pick up where I left off, obviously glad to see the city supported the MOU. Chamber of Commerce is still investigating, as I was said. They also reserve the right to forward charges to the Department of Justice if they deem a law was violated. My main concern for coming back up here is we had the administrator do an investigation, but this isn't the only incident we've had. We've had the shelter incident. We have multiple other lawsuits in court, both for ADA violations, which is a federal lawsuit, as well as state lawsuits. While there was changes about changing the code for the shelter and how all that works, I would like to see the Assembly change code of how investigations are handled. I think any and all investigations conducted into the city or the city's department should be handled by a third-party investigator with no connections or biases to Sitka. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening, Breezy Cranford. So I just have a couple questions. One, the meeting that's going to be on 3/10, will there be a virtual opportunity for people that won't be able to physically make it if they're not in town or sick or whatever?
And you know that this is not an opportunity for a two-way conversation, so I'm
Okay.
sure Assembly
Well,
member
I mean,
can
if
answer
something can
after
just
the
be put
meeting.
out
Yeah.
to let
But
us know.
thank you for the concern. It's a good point.
And then I also wanted to know if the process for volunteering will be made readily available to the public so that we can have plenty of volunteers for the shelter. Then my other concern is I'm in agreement with those that have already spoken that there needs to be a reopen investigation into the shelter because there's just too many unanswered questions. Just to name a few, how many of the employees at the SPD knew about this? How many were questioned during the investigation? What volunteers were interviewed during the investigation? How were the animals disposed of? How were they shot within such close proximity of a roadway? My understanding of the law is you cannot shoot a gun within, I believe, a quarter of a mile of the road system. And there was one other one. Let's see. Another one was why did volunteers find blood within the shelter if the animals were killed outside? And then the last one is with the community's lost trust in the city, that's why I'm requesting that a third-party investigation or that at least the investigation be reopened so that the community can know and move forward. Thank you.
Anyone else under persons to be heard? Any item on or off tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that'll bring us to reports. A lot to report on. I was gone the last 2 weeks at 2 different conferences, so I will try to hit some of the high points. Southeast Conference started out on the 11th. We started out with a great presentation about the state of the economy from Rainforest Data. And I think the biggest takeaway, and I think it was the beginning of her speech, she stated that the economy is great, depending on who you are. So there are people that are doing well in this economy, but for many others, it is not quite as good. Sitka's population is down over the last, and we know this, over the last year we've lost 140 residents, and over 10 years we've lost almost 1,000 residents. The population decline in Alaska is expected to continue. In the last 10 years, we put up one of the highest number of houses per capita of anywhere in Alaska. We gained 290 housing units in the last 10 years. That combined with a loss of population of 944 in the same period kind of leads me to wonder, where are the houses? But I think that's a discussion for later. Tourism is the biggest growth driver in Southeast Alaska. Wages, actually, in the tourism industry, not to include jobs, but just the wages are up 44%. It added another $106 million to the Southeast economy. The struggling seafood sector is expected to continue. Global competition is hurting our seafood producers here. Healthcare continues to be the #1 employer statewide. We also heard at Southeast Conference that timber is trying to make a comeback in Southeast Alaska, and that the federal administration might make it possible, and they have an intent to do so. Transportation in Southeast Alaska continues to be difficult with no real solutions in sight. Let's see. Continued investment in Southeast Alaska in the mariculture industry continues. There was a mariculture conference here this last week that I wasn't able to attend, but there's a large contingency working towards that. Nick Begich spoke to the group, wants to open up lands. So at a federal level, there may be opportunities for that as well. I think it's something kind of exciting. I think John was aware, but DOT announced at Southeast Conference that they're going to start working with the city on placing a crosswalk right out in front of Centennial Hall here, in order to help with visitors at that point. Everybody kind of laughed because the one picture that they showed, you can see where people are jaywalking, but it's also taken from the current crosswalk. So it's going to be an interesting management issue there with 2 crosswalks within like 100 feet of each other. But I think we've all identified the need there. Moving on to Alaska Municipal League, which I attended last week. This conference was not as rosy. There's a lot of concerns coming out from the state. There's a lot of wants, and there's not a lot of ability. The state's in a hard budget cycle right now. There's not any additional money, but that depends on who you talk to. If you've got the permanent fund and keep it for government operations, then we have lots of cash. And there are definitely some people in that camp right now. I don't anticipate getting harbor matching grants this year. That program may be gone. The school district funding is going to have quite the fight this year. It's in between $680 and $1,000 BSA, which also reduces the amount of PFD. If you have your $680 PFD, a $680 BSA, there's a potential for a $1,400 dividend. The more you increase it, the dividend goes down by a set amount there. Along the lines of school funding, something we need to watch out for, and I've let both of our representatives know that we are concerned about, is that DEED is looking into issuing regulations about funding school districts to the cap and other ways that municipalities support their districts. There is no draft regulations yet, but they have been working on clarifying some of those regulations. This potentially has a large impact on how our school system operates and how we can continue to operate it in the future. I did hear one of the legislators that came down to talk to us started to talk about sharing our fish tax amongst the state. Obviously a concern to us, and we rose those to our representatives when we were able to meet with them. Sounds as if some newspapers in the area, they kind of see the way of the future, and they understand that advertising in newspapers isn't always as feasible as it used to be. So they're developing a free public notice website that will be funded by each of the newspapers that we continue to advertise in. So those will be available for public notices such as assembly meetings and such. One of the large key things in AML is a lot of focus on resource development. That was a statement made not only at the federal level, but then by a lot of people's representatives as well. So I think there will be a focus on resource development, and depending on your view of that is either a good thing or a bad thing. And then I think everybody's probably heard this news already, but I heard it first from the governor's chief of staff, and I was kind of shocked by it. I brought it up with Bert Stedman, and he said, absolutely no way is this going to happen. But the governor is preparing a fish farming bill. Now, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it doesn't sound as if a fish farming bill is along the lines in what Southeast Alaska is looking for. So pay attention to that. There's been a couple further news releases on that, and it sounds as if the governor is going to look to work that through. So, at least Senator Stedman has a pretty hard no on that, but we'll continue to watch that as it comes forward. So, John, I hope I covered most of it. It's been a busy 2 weeks between those two conferences, but moving on to your report this evening.
Thanks, Mayor. Southeast Conference, Alaska Municipal League. Every time we have these, they're very valuable, and there's a lot of value also to having city staff and leadership along with elected officials there. It's same but different. I get the opportunity to talk to other city managers, and we discuss some of our common issues that we're trying to work through and share some valuable information. But most importantly, the mayor's report is before mine, and he gets to cover everything that I heard about, so I don't really have a lot more to go over as far as Southeast Conference and Alaska Municipal League. I did want to discuss the investigation that I had delivered to you all. That investigation was completed prior to my departure under some assembly guidance. I delivered that to you all. My plan when I returned was to put that ahead more formally and discuss it in the agenda. But prior to that happening, I'd actually say within 2 or 3 hours of me delivering the report to the assembly, I was already contacted by the media for a public records request. So I don't think there's a lot of value now at this point of putting the report in there. It's out in public, and it's available in the city as well. Some of the supplemental information is under review by legal right now, and that'll be released when it's able to. But I know there's some concerns with my findings, and I'm open to any other view on it. As always, any citizen is welcome to investigate the city. They can come with their own investigator. The assembly can direct an investigation by a third party, and as we always have been, I'm open to that if there is desire to proceed down that route. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Rachel.
Nothing substantive for me, but Tori, I'm available on the 10th. So I'll be at that town hall.
Yeah, that's kind of an important checkbox there. Thank you for making yourself available. Liaison representatives. I did have to miss tribal council this last week. I was in Juneau, had a meeting scheduled that I didn't anticipate at the end. Fortunately for me, just as I covered for John, Yeti Kuka covered for me, and I also have a meeting with her tomorrow too, so we'll be able to sit down and chat. Sarah, do you have a report?
So upcoming meetings, March 11th, we have a regular assembly meeting. March 12th is a budget meeting on enterprise funds. March 25th, a regular meeting, and then, as already been mentioned, the town hall on March 10th. And the clerk's office will be staffing that as support for the assembly and the group. And so look for more advertising this week on that.
Thank you. Tomorrow, or this Thursday? Yeah, budget meeting this Thursday, yes.
Yes, and another meeting on Thursday this week.
I'm sorry,
General fund.
you didn't announce it the first time, so I will not be
It's
present.
in the paper tonight, so, you know.
Yeah, sorry, I can't make it all of a sudden. Any other reports this evening? All right, that'll bring us to our last item tonight. We do have an executive session scheduled.
I move to go into executive session to receive and discuss attorney-client communication from the municipal attorney here regarding legal and financial matters affecting the municipality due to the Dick versus CBS litigation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Is there any public comment? Sarah, on the motion?
Right, on the motion to go into executive session, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mr. Mosier.
Yes.
And we'll be meeting in room 4, just down the hall.
Thank you, Assembly. Take a break on your way in if necessary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We are reconvened as the Assembly in regular session. The Assembly met in executive session to hear an update on the current legal status of ADIC versus CBS. That'll bring us to adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Assembly and staff, for your time this evening.